Hello and welcome to Anime with me, Asteroidia, and the skull we don't talk about. Today is an exciting day, because this is episode 2 of Trigun Stampede. Yes, been looking forward to this all week. I really enjoyed the first episode. The reception seems to have been a little mixed from what I saw. But it's kind of what I expected. It's a lot of people who went in with a lot of expectations based on their knowledge and memories of the original show and to a lesser extent the manga, although I kind of wonder how widely read the Trigun manga is, because a lot of people just seem to reference the show and not really Trigun and Trigun Maximum, which I think this is taking more from, as we discussed last week. But yeah, this is... this was really good last week. I really liked it. Probably, best first episode I've watched so far this season. I haven't watched everything. There's a couple of things I still kind of want to catch up on, but I think it's going to be the best first episode of the season. By one of my favorite production studios, Orange. So, Trigun's a great property. I really like what they've done with it, the changes they made, because this is really more of a reboot. One thing I wanted to mention, because it completely passed me by somehow in the first episode, but I think I was distracted by the Millie question, because of course Millie is not in this so far, leading us all to ask the eternal question.
The big woman still here?
And the answer to that so far seems to be no. She does seem to have been replaced with Roberto, but there is a possibility that down the line maybe she will come in to replace him, because he is taking up a kind of grizzled mentor role here. As someone had mentioned, I should have taken down the name, but someone mentioned in a comment in the last episode something about Millie, and I had occurred to me that with Roberto being in a grizzled mentor role, it's a role that a lot of anime characters don't survive, so I wonder if we might see Roberto sacrifice himself in some way or be otherwise killed, and then he is replaced by Millie as Meryl's new partner. But yeah, the thing I really missed last time is, because I was caught up in the whole Millie-Roberto thing, is they've changed Meryl's job completely. Because she wasn't a reporter originally. I was so dazzled by everything else that I totally didn't take that in. She's a reporter. She wasn't a reporter before. She was an agent for the insurance company that was following Vash around, not to get a story, but to calculate his deductible. Not his deductibles, but calculate deductibles and stuff for everyone else, and work out if people had valid insurance claims and whether the destruction caused in Vash's wake counted as like an act of God, or whether it was something you could be insured for. It's a whole vein of comedy there that just isn't in this, which tracks actually, because that is kind of an inherently silly concept, and they seem to be taking the world of the show seems to be taking itself a little bit more seriously this time around. So it kind of makes sense that that they've decided to flip that slightly, so that they're reporters going after the story on Vash, trying to write this, which I mean, it's still the whole thing's still going to be kind of wacky, but it's not quite as conceptually wacky as the whole insurance agent thing. So yeah, that makes sense. Oh, the other thing I just missed last time is that Vash's bounty in this is $6 billion double dollars. It was 60 in the original. Interesting. What does that mean? There's a lot of indications, not really in terms of plot events, but just in terms of character designs and where the characters are kind of at in terms of personality from that first episode, that kind of implies we have a slightly earlier start point in all of their lives than maybe we did in the original Trigun, both the manga and the anime. And that bounty could be reflective of that. This isn't something I picked up on, by the way. I saw this in discussions about it later on. I just missed that it was less. Well, I'm not entirely sure I missed it. I think I maybe clocked there was something a bit off there because the 60 billion double dollars is kind of like it gets repeated a lot in the anime, the original anime. But I think I maybe did kind of notice this. Wait, was that the figure the first time? But I didn't remember well enough to look it up, and I saw that later. So yeah, those were the couple of things I kind of missed or didn't talk about last time. But without further ado, let's get into this because I really want to watch this. I want to see what they're going to do with this and if the quality keeps up. And slightly nervous but very excited. Let's go. Okay. So, as always, this is a timer-based reaction, so you do need your own copy of the show to follow along. I will give you a 3, 2, 1 countdown before I start my copy, and there will be a little sliver of the show at the bottom of the screen with the subtitles in it to help with the syncing, and a timer as well for the same reasons. So, on your marks. I will make sure I've got my copy ready. On your marks, and 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, we got Vash on the siege ship again. Is this definitely episode 2? Yes, it is. Okay, this is shortened version of the same dream sequence or memory sequence. Okay. God, this sequence was so good. Knives gloating. Jesus. Okay. Picture of them on the siege ship. Ooh. 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 That was a nice transition into the OP. Yeah. Again, a helpful commenter pointed out that this was the OP. I thought this was the ED when I saw it at first because it had that kind of vibe, but this makes a lot of sense. As with the change from insurance agents to reporters on Millie, it's kind of setting the tone. This is different from the original Trigun. And as much as I think some of the audience is going in with those expectations and is maybe having problems with the show because of that, it is really trying to make sure that you know this is not going to be the same thing in terms of tone. Because this is fundamentally setting up something really very different from the original anime adaptation. Which the OP for that is, iconic rock instrumental. With a lot of comedy in it, whereas this is not, This is super moody and kind of slightly laid back, but just laying it out there. They did give him a different hair color, which I'm not sure was the case in the original. Kinda. Well, I mean, assuming the motivations are even slightly similar. She's not keen on the bugs. That was cute. Oh, is Vash getting hounded out of town? Yeah. Or possibly turned over. Are they actually turning him over for the bounty? Possibly. Yeah. They're going to try and turn him over for the bounty. Oh, cool. Oh. Oh. Oh, wow. Oh, look at him go. Look how expressive that is. It's amazing. That first section of the run really reminded me across the rooftops of a bit in Hoseki no Kuni. Is Meryl gonna... Yeah, Meryl's gonna get you out of it. She's got to get her story. What's happening out here? Oh yeah, I recognize these guys. Hmm. It's got a nice picture of him actually. So they've been caught up in it as well directly. So they can't abandon him now, even if they want to. Yeah, that's your reason, Vash, for sure. Doesn't mean he's lost his coat, though. Oh. Okay, I guess he had an identical red coat for escape purposes. Or he found it somewhere, I suppose. The tavern keeper's back again. So we're going to have a fight between the bounty hunters and... Oh dear. Yeah, the extendable arm. Okay, I remember these guys. They need the money. Yeah, but they'll die. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of hard to argue with that, isn't it? Although I think circumstances are gonna, yep. You would kind of hope now he saved your life the third time. You might let him leave though. Nebraska's, yeah. Hey! He's leading them out of town, yeah. See, I remember these guys from the original, but I don't remember enough about the manga or the anime to really know for sure what's going to happen. No. Meryl's motivations are slightly different in this. He's still trying to drink while they're in this car chase. Oh, look at that. Look at the coat move. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have thrown the driver out the window and maybe you would have known how to drive it properly. Oh, here we go. Here they come. Oh, there goes the bedroll. Oh, okay. I was kind of expecting that to spin out to full confrontation, but they did get away. Huh. They're going back to the village. He's not staying to confront any of his problems. That's one way of putting it. The subtlety of the expressions. Orange, you're just so good at this. So why are you assuming that this is going to get you Vash? I like he keeps pointing that RPG at things and then never actually firing it. Oh, right, they're just going to steal the plants. Okay, okay. Okay. That's better, because I kind of thought this was going to be a convoluted plan to try and draw Vash back, but I was like, why would they think that Vash would... Yeah, okay. With his reputation, it wouldn't make any sense to assume that. I mean, it's true, but... Oh, wow, okay, they just... Right, that was quick. And they're just trying to load it up and leave. It's going to be risky. Okay. That's optimistic. You're going in for the melee on that. Yeah, that seems unwise. Hey! Akira slide! Nice! I mean, it wasn't with a motorbike, but that perspective, yeah. That was definitely a reference. Whoa! The choreography in this show is so good! Can't keep running away forever. There we go. That's why he's always got the RPG. Oh. Oh, no, okay. Think he's okay somehow. Also, if you'd blown him apart into tiny little pieces, I don't think you could have collected the bounty, but... I have a feeling appealing to their better natures isn't going to be that effective. I don't think he thinks about it in terms of value. Yeah, you shot your one shot. I thought he was going to do it. Yeah, there's a shot for you. He wants to try and be on everyone's side. But life isn't always going to let you do that. He's trying to save the plant. Oh, he's made it. Maybe. And now the townspeople are out for blood. Music is really cool. There's like a big Sergio Leone side to it as well. Ennio Morricone, well, Sergio Leone as well, but and everyone ends up in the bar. He's scared of bugs as well. That's fun. It's a fun parallel for the start and the end of the episode. You're the one who seems drunk, but hey. Those are interesting. Vash is packing up and moving out. Skipping town. Yeah, people who'd come in for the money. Yeah, we already know, but that's not really why he's running. What's going on? What is this? No. Don't. What? Don't just stop there. Tell me what happened. Oh, man. Huh. Huh. What happened at the end there? Okay, this is the first time we've seen the CD, so I need to pay attention. We've got constellations. I like the song too. This is cool. Constellations forming and reforming. We've got Vash and Knives as Gemini. And then the others are just conventional. That looked like Morse code. I wonder if that means anything. The plant and Knives. Studio Orange. Have we got preview or is that just it? Oh no, we've got an end card. Oh, another amazing end card. Hmm. Is that knives? Because we saw him playing an organ, wearing like a giant cloak, but I guess the cloak was covering that, which doesn't seem... I don't want to go too far into that because that's kind of getting into... I don't even know what a spoiler is for this anymore because this is different. This is very different. That went by quick. A lot of action. Which means kind of inherently there's a little bit less to talk about, but the whole interaction between, yeah, the Nebraska family. Because I did recognize them. The guy with the kind of big kind of Frankenstein monster son with the hand, the rocket punch, the hands and the cables, and then the older scientist father. I just looked up to confirm the name. Yeah, the son was a lot bigger in the original anime, but oh, this raises all sorts of questions about what I should do going forward, actually, because it's like, should I go back to the original episodes and see how this originally played out to kind of do a compare and contrast thing? Because I'm going to end up doing that anyway, because I remember some of this stuff, but not. So I'm about to try and compare what I remember about this to what just happened, and what I remember about this could be completely wrong. I just could be, I could have forgotten loads of it and just be misremembering this is something else, but I think in the original show and the manga as well, I think these guys were just villains of the week, and I think they were not. I mean, you're already getting an idea of who Vash is, the kind of. Because I don't think he started this character archetype. There's always this idea in society and anime of the main character who is in some sense a pacifist, or at least refuses to kill. And people complain about that a lot. People get very bloodthirsty about anime protagonists, not just, like slaughtering all of their enemies immediately. And sometimes it's ridiculous. Sometimes it's like, this guy has the murder man has murdered 6 million people and will murder another 12 million unless we stop him here. And the hero is like, but yes, but I cannot kill him because that would be wrong. And you're like, I think you can probably just kill murder man. He's like, he's just gonna like it's in the name. So yeah, people get kind of annoyed about that, and sometimes justifiably. Sometimes I think it's a little bit like, you're talking about a teenage protagonist. I don't think he's just gonna like shank a guy while he's on the ground, just because he would probably be the practical thing to do in the long term. But that is kind of a character archetype in anime. And I managed to cough so hard it lost the focus on the camera. Let's grab that again. Thank you. I think that's a character archetype that was around before Vash and before Trigun. But in a lot of ways, Vash, I feel like is kind of a really like core representation of that, and a much more extreme representation of that than you get elsewhere. Because it's not just that he's refusing to kill people; he's kind of refusing to fight in a lot of cases, which was played for laughs a lot more in the original show at the start. And it was kind of played for comedy here, because we had the whole chase sequence, an amazing chase sequence through the streets once the villagers turned on him. But not quite so much, and we definitely get to the heart of it a lot quicker than we did in the original show or in the manga, about where that's coming from with Vash. Because we already know in this show, again, I think I said this in the last episode discussion, but I am going to stay as clear from anything that could be construed as a spoiler, as in information from the original manga or the anime that we haven't found out yet. But based on what we have found out from the show, we know that Vash is driven by guilt over what happened to the seed ships. We still don't know exactly. I mean, talking about spoilers, but I don't know exactly what the circumstances of that were, because I think it's going to be slightly different in this. But it's clear that he feels complicit in what Knives did to the seed ships, and is complicit, because, I mean, Knives said he had a part in it, and like it really seemed in the flashback in the last episode, it really seemed like he did actually play some kind of role in that, although he wasn't aware of the full scope of what Knives was planning to do. So he's driven by guilt over that, and he is kind of extrapolating that to everything. So every confrontation he runs. And not just because he doesn't want to get anyone else caught in the crossfire, which is kind of made clear at the start, because he runs from the villagers, because the villagers turn on him, and you're like, well, the villagers kind of have a point. I mean, it's still not, wouldn't be it's not the most honourable thing they could have done in this scenario, but they will die without the plant, and the plant will die without money to buy a new plant. So getting the $6 million from handing in Vash, it's a horrible thing to do to him after he saved you, but if it's that or death for you and everyone you know, it's a hard choice. Either way. And maybe they made the wrong choice. Maybe they didn't. But either way, they make their choice, and you can see why Vash doesn't fight there, because he doesn't want to fight these people. I mean, what would you do anyway? Just kill everyone in the town. No. So, he runs from that, and it makes sense. Now he runs from the bounty hunters, and you're like, well, he's just drawing the bounty hunters out of the village into the desert, so that he doesn't have a fight in the village, it doesn't harm the villagers, and then he can fight them out in the desert where there's no one around. But he doesn't want to fight them there either, because he doesn't want to hurt the bounty hunters. So it's not just about protecting innocence, it's about a kind of pathological inability to even defend himself, really, in any other way than just running. And then we move back in, because and that was interesting, because I thought that was good as well, because I did think what they were going to do is the bounty hunters were going to hold the village hostage to try and get Vash to come back, but that wouldn't make any sense in context of the universe, because Vash, although we know what Vash is like already, even by the start of this episode, he's got this horrible reputation in universe, so like, why you wouldn't hold innocent people to try and draw him in, because you would have no reason to think that would work. It would work. We know it would work. They wouldn't know it would work. The bounty hunters wouldn't know it would work. So that wouldn't have made any sense. So the fact that the bounty hunters were just like, well, we've lost Vash, but we might as well go and steal the plant from these people. That makes a lot more sense. And it's just better writing. Yeah. But they catch that the raid's going on over the radio, and they come back. And then, so we have our third bait here, where Vash ran from the villagers because he doesn't want to fight them for obvious reasons. Vash ran from the bounty hunters because he doesn't want to fight them, and you're like, well, that seems more justifiable, because they were just coming to fight him, and they don't really seem like great people. And then Vash goes back to save the town, but he still doesn't really want to fight the bounty hunters. He doesn't want to kill them, and he goes out of his way to save them, even when they're kind of being destroyed by their own hubris. Like the older Nebraska actually shoots at him, intending to kill him, and all he does is deliberately shoot the bullet out of the air instead of attack either of them, and then tries to negotiate a solution. And I think the thing about the way this happens early, and it being early in the show, is that this works up until that very last scene, which we still don't really know what's happening, and I'll get to that in a second. But up until the last scene, it works. Everyone's fine. Everyone's friends at the end. It's to do the Doctor Who reference from middle of Christopher Eccleston's run. It's like, just this once, everybody lives. Everything works out for the best. We've saved the townspeople. The townspeople have decided not to turn in Vash, at least not for the moment. We've saved the antagonists. The antagonists are now friendly with the townspeople again because they brought back the plant, and because Junior decided in the end to save the plant for, presumably for the town rather than save himself, and almost sacrificed himself in doing so, which probably helped with the town people. And also is interesting because it seems like he was inspired by Vash to do that. He inspired by Vash's example. So everything works, and you're like, well, it worked this time. It's like, And it worked because the Nebraskas aren't really that, I mean, they're pretty bad. They were going to condemn this town basically to die. But they're not that bad that they can't be reasoned with at all. So, like, the question, of course, becomes after this is, you know, what happens to Vash when there is no good option, when you are forced to choose. Like, he was able to use his skill this time to find a third option. But what if there is no third option? What if you have to pick one or two? And you have to hit something head on. So that's going to be his challenge going forward, really. And we've got a much clearer picture of that, because that was something that was built up in the original Trigun over a longer period of time. But we've kind of set that up early. We set it up earlier here to be a kind of thesis statement for the show, which is, yeah. One of the things I think people have had problems with, who saw the original, is that they seem to feel like it's spilling the beans too early. And I get that. But I think it's doing this for a reason. I think it's doing this so it can explore these things more thoroughly from the beginning rather than waiting for mysteries to unfold. I don't think this show is particularly concerned with mysteries, which that makes sense, actually, I think, as something to do for a reboot, because, like, it's an old show, right? It's an old, and there's a whole new generation of anime fans who maybe haven't seen the original Trigun or read the manga. So there are going to be people who are new to this, but there are going to be a lot of people who are very familiar or quite familiar with the original. Like, is there a point in spooling out the exact same mysteries in the exact same order over again? You don't want to assume that people know what's going to happen at the start. But I think telling them, well, giving them that information at the start in this one, and then possibly setting up new mysteries for the rest of the show, I think that's probably a better way to do a reboot with a property that's so iconic as Trigun. And so widely known. That just makes more sense to me as a thing to do with a reboot than just retread the same thing. It's like that, like is Knives? Who is Knives? Who's this mysterious character? And you're going to get, like, you know, a big chunk of the audience is going to be like, yeah, it's Vash's brother. We remember this from the original. You know, it's like, that's not going to be an exciting, you know. There's lots of fans of the original who are like, oh, I wanted these mysteries to be maintained. It's like, why? You know what happens. It's not going to be a mystery for you. I mean, you're not going to appreciate, like, a gradual unfolding of all this stuff you already know, because, like, why would you care? You already know what it is. And I mean, there's merit in the journey of the destination in that, right? So, you know, you could have it's possible to appreciate a well-crafted kind of mystery or unveiling of information, even if you do ultimately know what's going to happen. And I think that too, because as I said, I think at the start of this, I'm not actually overly bothered about spoilers most of the time. But just retreading the same ground, just I don't see what I would have got out of that, and I don't really see what anyone would really get out of that in the grand scheme of things, compared to just front-loading the series with that information, going, yep, this is our setup, these are who these characters are, these are what they believe in, and we're going to do something new with it. We're going to go in new directions, we're going to have new stuff happen to them. With all of the same stuff that you already knew established. So we're adding rather than taking away. Apart from Millie, but we'll leave that one alone for the moment. But yeah, we're adding things to this established world instead of like stripping stuff out. You know, we're just putting extra stuff on it. Which I think, yeah, I think that's good. There's an interesting little conversation between Roberto and Roberto and Vash as Vash is skipping town without telling anyone. He asks him who he's running from. And I think that's a nod to the that's a wink at the audience as well, because he asks, he's like, just who is it you're running from? And he's like, oh wait, no, you told us that this morning. It's like, yeah, I think I see what you're doing there, script writers. And that's a nice touch. I quite like that. But the thing is, why is Vash running from knives? And I think you get from what happens in this episode that Vash isn't running from knives because knives is this terrifying presence that Vash is afraid of. I mean, yeah, he is up to a point, but like, that's not why Vash runs from things, because Vash has the skills for direct confrontation. But that's not why he runs from stuff. It's basically never why he runs from stuff. And yeah, the ending scene, that was weird. In a good way, I feel like I've been using, last few shows I've watched, I've been using weird in a slightly pejorative sense. But no, in this case, I do find it weird but interesting and intriguing, because this is one of the things where I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but I think maybe the Nebraskas did come back later, but they were kind of a villain of the week thing where I don't think the situation got resolved as peacefully as it did in this episode. And I don't recognize this at all. I don't know what's happening here. Where we get this shot earlier on of the little creatures. And I think they're in Vash's room. Yeah, because we get the whole scene in the bar where everyone's drinking together, and that's when Roberto notices that Vash leaves to have that conversation later on. Right, so the little, I think they look like viruses or like prions or something. These weird little technological bugs, and we see that they're looking for Vash, or at least it seems like they're looking for Vash, because they're in his recently vacated room. But Vash leaves, he has that conversation, but then we come back in because the little virus creatures have latched onto Nebraska Jr. and they're doing something to him. And there's an explosion. So it kind of seems like maybe they've just killed him, but I suspect there's more to it than that, because if you were going to kill someone, why would you need a load of like exploding murder robots? Surely there would be, like, they could just kill you when they come on you with like poison or something. Why are they, so many of them in the explosion? I assume they've probably done something to like put him into some kind of berserk state. I can't remember. I cannot remember if these are from the original. I feel like maybe they're somewhat familiar. Maybe. I can't remember. I can't remember if these were something that was in the original. I assume there's something sent by... I think maybe I'm going to leave the comparisons to the original for most of this run, because I don't think I will go back and watch any of it like after these episodes, because I think that's just going to muddy the waters of me appreciating the new stuff. So I maybe won't harp on about this too much, and I'll just... If I think I recognize something, I'll say, hey, I think I recognize this, but I won't go and like rack my brains trying to remember it. I think I'll just, maybe I recognize this, maybe I don't. We're just going to treat it as if it's new, because I don't remember enough about it, if I do remember it, to talk about it in that context. So I assume these are sent by Knives. We know they were originally looking for Vash, probably, based on the fact they were in his room. But why have they gone after Junior? Don't know. Junior has a robotic arm, so maybe they mistook Junior for Vash. It's possible. Depends on how simplistic their programming is, the little robots. And it depends, of course, what they're doing to Junior as well. Because, like I said, I don't think this is just an assassination thing. I think they've probably done something to him that'll maybe make him a bigger threat for the next episode. And we'll open on that. I think this could be an example. Yeah, because if this turns Junior like berserk in some way and starts him attacking the town, that's kind of Vash's perfect third way solution where he's managed to get everyone in the same room and everyone happy, more or less. That's ruined that for him. So that seems plausible. Or Junior has been injured or assassinated or something, and Nebraska Senior blames the town and the conflict starts up again. I don't know. I think the point of this is to throw some kind of wrench into Vash's happy, everyone lives happy ending. But it's very difficult to speculate that because we just don't know what's happened. Any number of things could come out of this. And yeah, once again, the Orange. I love Orange so much. They're so good at this. So many little character moments in that first conversation. Just the subtle movements. Meryl's expressions are just going to be a classic for years to come. She didn't have quite so many notable ones in this one, but she still had some pretty good ones in the background. And Vash looked great. Yeah. When he's commiserating with himself in the conversation at the start, I'll have the footage up for that. Yeah, just the subtlety of some of the faces as well. And then we have the townspeople make the decision to turn on Vash. And we cut to the episode title, The Running Man. And we cut to Vash's run through the streets. Oh, there's one, again, I'll have this up, but there's the rotating camera as he does a flip across a gap. That's fantastic. Looks amazing. This whole first sequence, I might even, it's going to be a bit of work left to actually find the episode of Hoseki no Kuni and then import that footage into this, which, yeah, I think I probably will do that. But there's a running sequence. I hope these are similar now that I've brought this up, otherwise I'll have to edit this whole bit out. But there's a running sequence, or a couple of running sequences in Hoseki no Kuni that really remind me of this, and they were brilliant there, and they're brilliant here. It's not so similar that it's just like, oh, they're just reusing that same trick, but just that kind of dynamic travel through an environment. It looks so good. And like, people complain about CG, and like, you can do all of this in 2D. Well, no, you can. Given infinite time and infinite amounts of skill, you can do all of this in 2D. You can do anything you want in 2D, right? But like, in a seasonal, episodic anime, there's stuff in this that you just know. You're not, no way are you ever going to get some of this stuff, some of these shots in a 2D seasonal anime. Not with the amount of time that they get to do those in, which is, no, that was the previous episode discussion. I talked about that, but I talked about how I don't like talking about budget in relation to anime, because it's often very not actually relevant to how the process works. It's more about time than budget, time and skill, but time being the most important factor. And just the beauty of CG anime, when it's done very well, as it is with Orange, is that you can do things in so much less time than it would take to hand animate them, and you can, especially camera movements, because it's just so much simpler with 3D to move the camera around the characters than it is in 2D. And there's just, like I said, there's just stuff here where that's amazing. Because I was looking at this scene, and they have absolutely stretched Vash's neck upwards. You'll be able to see this. He looks like from the back. He looks like Beaker from the Muppets, because he's got this huge, long, like cylindrical neck. But they're like warping the character models somehow, like the 3D character models, as though it was 2D for like to show motion and. They were like warped interstitial frames in 2D animation. I'm not sure how they're doing that. Yeah, because he starts getting... I'll loop this clip a few times so you can see, but he starts getting shot at, and his head, his neck and head definitely extend upwards. They're stretched upwards. That's really unusual, because one of the problems with 3D animation, or 3D anime specifically, is that they tend to just have the character models, and the character models will do things, and it's kind of stiff and slightly robotic, and one of the reasons is there's never any flex to them. They're mannequins being posed and moved around, as though they were made out of like, as though you're doing like stop motion with action figures, right? Because stop motion in clay, of course, you can warp and mold things and stretch things out. But if you're doing like little stop motion films with hard plastic action figures, where they have this specific range of movement, and depending on the quality of them, maybe they've got a big range of movement, but they can't ever be anything other than exactly what they were made as. And a lot of anime just use 3D figures for the sake of time and budget, and fair enough. They just use they just use CG animated models as though they were these plastic action figures. There's never any warping of these models to do anything with. And Trigun is definitely doing that. And again, the kind of highly animated faces on the 2D models, with all of Orange's stuff, make a huge difference compared to, well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to, I never like talking too much about a different show, especially not one that's currently airing, but Kind of the Snow Sea, Polygon's show this season, who are like the number 2, at least in my opinion. I've heard some differing, I'd said that to someone the other day and got in this whole discussion about whether there's like an idol anime airing at the moment that also uses 3D that I had never heard of. I can't even remember the name off the top of my head, but anyway, I digress. But Kind of the Great Snow Sea is Polygon of Knights of Sidonia, the Godzilla movies, and Asian Demi-Human. And like, their stuff is good, but they don't do anything like this. This warping of the character models, the dynamic movement, the facial expressions. Polygon stuff looks good, but when you're running it up against this, like, it's just, they look like NPCs in a video game, right? And a video game from a while ago where they were using very stiff 3D models. But this, it just looks incredible. The backgrounds are so good. The 3D character models moving in these almost like look very hand painted backgrounds in places as well. And just the care that's taken in all the lighting and all the reflections of Vash's arm. And yeah, they did like, okay, we're gonna remake Trigun, right? And we're gonna redesign Vash. We're gonna remake Trigun in 3D, and we're gonna redesign Vash in such a way that he now has this giant metal arm with all of these reflections on it. It's like, what a flex! What a flex! This is your main character who's going to be in like maybe 70% of the total shots in the show, and you make him that much more difficult to properly animate and light because it's a 3D anime. It's just like, yeah, okay, Orange, okay, you do that. But yeah, that whole run's fantastic. In terms of animation, we've got lots of other good character animation, and there's kind of a final thing with the animation. There's another really good close quarters fight sequence. After Vash catches the chief, let's just move into this so we can have a look. Oh, yeah, there's some great stuff here. Just again with camera moves. And just the way everything in Vash is in motion in some of these scenes. The camera moves around, he's dodging the rocket punch. Some incredible stuff. There's this wonderful shot where the camera stops and stays still and Vash is just dodging the incoming rocket punches. And it's so good. It's so well choreographed. Like, the thought that went into the sequence of movements. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. The sense of space as well, which is, again, that's one of the advantages of 3D, is that you're not just having to imagine how this character is moving around the environment. You are actually moving this character within the environment. So that becomes so much easier to do. It takes so much less time. And again, for whatever you think about the final finished product of 3D, you can't just say this would look better in 2D, because this would not look like this in 2D. It would not have these sequences. It would not have this kind of choreography, because there would not be time in a weekly seasonal anime with... I mean, admittedly, there are all sorts of problems with anime production schedules where maybe there should be enough time when you're making an anime to do stuff like this in 2D. But even in an ideal scenario, like, even in like I don't know, Kyoto Animation Show, although like Koyani use a lot of 3D. Like, I'm thinking about my favorite Koyani show, which is Nichijou. There's a load of 3D shots in that. Like when they want to do stuff like this in Nichijou, and it's like a sketch comedy show, but it's got stuff like this in it. But when they want to do shots like this in Nichijou, it uses 3D models so they can pan the camera around and so they can have these kind of movements. So yeah, I don't. Yeah, if you say this would look better in 2D, it's like, well, yeah, given a theoretically infinite amount of time and infinite amount of animation talent working on it, yes, but like, in a real world scenario, I don't see this. You would not get a one-to-one translation of this into 2D. It would be much less ambitious in terms of what it was doing with these action sequences. It would have to be. And I just think this looks great. Like, I think this looks fantastic. I'm biased. Hoseki no Kuni, favorite show, as I've said ad nauseum at this point. I think people are probably going to be sick of hearing about Hoseki no Kuni by the end of this, by the end of Trigun. It does bias me a little bit towards Orange, but I just think, like, there are people saying this looks bad. It's like, do you have eyes? What are you looking at? Did you accidentally start watching a different show? Because, like, this looks amazing. Yeah, I don't get that. I don't get that perspective. I can get not liking it. I can get not liking some of the decisions, and some people, the 3D camera movements can be a bit much, and maybe in... I don't think this, but I can see someone making an argument that maybe they're overusing the kind of swooping 3D camera movements in this a little bit. I don't actually really think that, but I can... Like, if someone told me that, I'd be like, I disagree with you, but I see what you mean, you know, like, I can see where you're coming from. Like maybe it's making people motion sick or something. Like, yeah, that seems plausible. But no, I love this. I think it looks great. Yeah, we've had our character moments with Vash. It's one of these things where I took a note during the episode. I just wrote, I've got Meryl's name and then motivation, and I'm like, what do I mean when I wrote that down? I think I remember though. So it was just a moment of looking at my own writing, going like, the hell was I talking about? Yeah. So this is again something that's going to be difficult to talk about because I don't know if I remember the original Trigun well enough to actually make this comparison. But I think Meryl is kind of interesting to me. New Meryl compared to original Meryl, because she seems, again, to my brain that may not be remembering the original Meryl very well, but she seems like kind of a different, quite a different character in subtle ways and small ways that kind of have larger ramifications. Like she seems newer, more of a newbie to this whole thing, a little fresher to it, a little more naive, a little more idealistic. Because Meryl in the original, she wasn't really a tsundere, but she had a bit of that towards Vash, just in the sense of she would always couch helping Vash in terms of her job as an insurer, obviously as it was in the original as an insurance agent. She would always find excuses to help Vash in various scenarios when he got himself into trouble or people got himself into trouble. She would use like, oh well, we've got to be in the midst of this. We've got to. These people have to survive, so we can interview them about their insurance claims. So we'll have to help Vash help these people and stuff. So she would always couch stuff in terms of that. She didn't do that so much in this episode. I can't quite remember where the dialogue was exactly, but I'm sure there were points where she seems more open to the idea of helping Vash just because it's the right thing to do in the scenario, and kind of more openly sympathetic. She was always sympathetic towards him, but more openly sympathetic towards him. So that's, we'll have to see where that goes, because that I won't, it's hard to say where they're taking that until we see where they're taking it, or we get more of an indication down the line, or we get more moments specifically between Meryl and Vash, which we didn't really get so much. Because kind of the Vash interaction was dominated by this Roberto character who, I mean, I can't say anything about him compared to the original because he's not in it. He is new. There was a thought that, not to harp on too much about the Millie stuff, but there was a the way Roberto's character was described originally in kind of some of the promo material that I saw is people were thinking about him as being a replacement for Millie, but he's really not. Like, he is really absolutely nothing like Millie. He doesn't serve the same purpose. And I do wonder about Roberto's prospects. Roberto seems like he's going to be stepping on the toes of another character that will be introduced this season, which is like, because anyone who knows the original Trigun knows kind of who I'm talking about. And like, do you see that character and Roberto kind of coexisting in the same space at the same time? Goes back to my theory. Is Roberto sticking around? Is the grizzled old mentor character for Meryl going to suffer a tragic fate before the end of the core? And will he be replaced by Millie? Will we get Millie back? Maybe. I mean, I think there's room You can do anything you want in the story, right? You could make room for this upcoming character and Roberto in the same place. I mean, yeah, you could do that. You can have your ensemble cast, but there's just something quite similar about their sort of outlooks and their demeanor. There's something kind of similar there that makes me wonder if they're going to be, because it feels like kind of they're filling a similar role, especially towards Vash, in a way. I wonder. Well, speculation over. We'll put a pin in that and maybe come back to it. I am gonna like scream from the rooftops that I called it if that happens. But if something happens to Roberto, although again, with the way this character kind of archetype works, I don't think that's necessarily like a massively out of left field thing to maybe anticipate. But I'm still gonna gloat about it if it happens. Yeah. Okay. Trigun Stampede, episode 2. Yeah, I still think it's great. This is definitely the best show of the season so far. Yeah. There's other stuff I like this season. There's other stuff I like a lot this season. I liked it. Filmed it. It'll probably go up after this, even though I filmed it before. But I watched episode 2 of Beast of Ours, and not to spoil anything, but I still like that show a lot. Reincarnated Princess is good as well. Although I thought the second episode fell off a little bit for me, but after the first was really a massive punch to the face, which was great. But this is very good. It's very good. I like what it's doing with the reboot. The quality has kept up. There wasn't a dip in episode 2, although, as I'd mentioned last episode, with it being a CG anime, that's not really so much a thing. It hasn't historically been a thing with Orange either, specifically, but just with the way 3D animation works, once you've got the assets, you can have the assets. And it's not so much that as you get less time per episode, it's more about the prep time, I think, for the whole series. So I wasn't really expecting that, but there was no noticeable dip in quality between episode 1 and 2. Voice acting's great. Music is really good. Yeah, I meant to actually mention there's shades of Ennio Morricone in this, which is, yeah, very cool. Fit in the Western theme. I think the original anime had kind of spaghetti Western style music as well, but this is leaning hard on it, which I like. Well, no, it's not leaning hard on it, actually. It's doing it in a way that's still fairly subtle, but you've got that kind of signature Ennio Morricone whistle, you know, like the good and the bad and the ugly soundtrack, Fistful of Dollars and such. Yeah, that's really cool. Yep. So that's what I thought of episode 2. Bring me episode 3. Want to see it now. Want to see the rest of the show now. Yeah. Very exciting. So, if you liked the video, please consider liking, subscribing. And if you actually want to see more of my videos, please think about maybe hitting the bell, because as I always say, that is the only way I see anything from my subscribed channels these days, is if I actually have notifications on, because if I don't have the notifications on, I will never see the thing I subscribed to again. For whatever reason, the YouTube algorithm just, it sucks. Yeah, it really sucks. I mean, what's happening with YouTube at the moment sucks as well, and it won't even affect me. Well, maybe it'll affect me eventually, but it won't affect me now, but it still sucks. Yeah, I kind of did that spiel not really anticipating the end of the video, but we're at the end of the video now. You can go if you like. I've been Asteroidia. This has been Trigun Stampede, episode 2. And I will see you in the next episode. Also, I'm going to leave more time at the end of this. I might even leave this in just to say, but I'm going to leave more time at the end of this video because I've been like hitting the stop recording button almost immediately after I say that. It's led to really abrupt endings in these videos so far. So this is me killing time so that I've got something to fade out on. So, you know, if you're watching me and my voice is gradually getting quieter, that's because I'm doing that now. And I won't do this in every video, but, you know, I'll leave more time. I'll leave a pause at the end. That's